Greetings to everyone on my channel. Sit back. Now you will listen to another incredible story about the relationship of a married couple and the incredible exposure of his wife. I will ask you to subscribe to my channel and like it. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me. The morning turned out to be extremely hot. But when you are young and full of strength, this circumstance does not really bother you, especially when there is such a prospect ahead as a 3-day outing to nature, to a forest lake. Anyone who has been in such a situation will understand. Half an hour ago, we disembarked from the train and now, stretching out in a line, we are cheerfully walking along a narrow dirt track. The forest looms ahead. Somewhere there is a mysterious lake lurking and waiting for us. We are ninth graders from one of the schools of the year K, and two young men. One of them is me, the author of this story. My name is Andre. My children and colleagues are called Andre Ivanovich. However, the kids only call me that in person. Behind the eyes, they call a lobster. It's all about my last name, Lang. My grandfather told me about some German roots. A lobster is like a lobster. I'm not holding a grudge. I treat it philosophically, as an inevitability. The second of the adults is Oleg. He is the former homeroom teacher of this ninth grade. He transferred to another school 3 months ago. I'm the new homeroom teacher. Oleg promised the children such a trip at the beginning of this school year, and now keeps his word. Well done. 40 minutes later, we were at the edge of the forest. By this point, the children's enthusiasm had dried up a bit. The heavy luggage and the heat made themselves felt. We tried, going a little deeper into the forest, to arrange a small halt. But where is there? Mosquitoes immediately flew in, probably from all over the forest. Yes, they are. I had to interrupt my rest and almost run to move on. The path went up the hill. It was not easy to walk with the load. But the swamps next to the path stopped coming across, and with them the mosquitoes disappeared. It brightened noticeably in the forest ahead, and after about 5 minutes we crawled, almost literally, onto a huge bald spot in the forest. Romantics would call it a clearing, but I'm not one of them. Here was also what we were aiming for. Until recently, it was a sand pit. It was abandoned and soon filled with water. So much for the lake. After a quick bite of homemade sandwiches, we set about setting up our camp. They started putting up tents. Andre Ivanovich, tent pegs for you, Oleg asked. Vladik has them. At Novakovsky's, I replied. Vladik, give me the pegs, Oleg trumpeted. But as Vladimir Semyonovich sang, silence in response. 20 minutes of searching yielded nothing. I looked cautiously at the surface of the water. But what if? And there is no Yolka either. A girl's voice squeaked. I'm relieved here. Everything is clear. They found the backpack of this young fool, took the pegs out of it. 10 minutes later, for tents pleased the eye with the bright colors of their fabric. The loss was discovered about 3 hours later. Rather, she did not show up, but calmly came by herself. Heads down, the couple listened to Oleg and me lecture. And all this would have been limited if Novakovsky had had the sense to remain silent. But this component was not enough for Vladislav, either because he was going to college, which means goodbye to school and teachers are not afraid, or he decided to show off in front of Julia. Fuck you. He sent Oleg and me along a well-known hiking route. In response, I couldn't help but slap him in the face. Exactly a slap in the face. But apparently he did not calculate the effort and the boy fell. Nothing terrible happened to him. He immediately got up. His cheek turned purple. You'll remember this day. Longust, Vladik hissed. The next 2 days seemed like 2 years to me. And although Vladik and I publicly settled the conflict around the campfire that evening, admitting that we had overreacted, that we were wrong, the tension still remained. They returned home quietly. I was afraid that our incident would come up officially, but it didn't happen. Vladislav, despite his initial decision, did not enter the college, but stayed at school. 20 different years have passed. A lot of things have happened during this time. The children have grown up. They now have their own families, their own worries. My wife and I were left alone, just like when we were young. It's a pity that the years are not the same. I'm 50, Ada. My wife is 3 years younger. Actually, she's Adeline. It sounds like Adeline Lang. So, this year, and it's 2015, my wife and I decided to buy a house. It wasn't that they decided for a long time. It was just a chance that turned up. Our friends somehow discovered Bulgarian blood in themselves and became inflamed with an unexpected love for the homeland of their ancestors. A week ago, they left for their now private Plovdiv. They sold their house to us. The deal has not been officially finalized yet. There's a catch with the cadastral number of the land plot, but everything should be resolved soon. Sergey is my friend and I trust him. O left a power of attorney to sell to his brother. The brother will have to represent Sergey's interests at the notary. One thing bothered me. Sergey begged us to give the money for the house in advance, before the official transaction. They have exit documents on hand and they can't wait. We took a bank loan secured by our apartment. Then we will sell the apartment and return the money to the bank. Everything is simple. At the end of May, Sergey called from Bulgaria. We talked about this and that. How did you get settled? How about work, housing, and so on? At the end of the conversation, he said that the documents for the house were fully ready and his brother would call him about the date of the transaction. June 12th. On this day, house number 17 on Zelenaya Street will be ours. Tomorrow. And tonight I was amused by such an episode. Ada was preparing her outfit for tomorrow's outing. She chose one of her many dresses that she had not worn for a long time. A simple dark dress with white polka dots. And to top it off, she took out a hat from somewhere, a lilac hat. She should complete Adeline's outfit tomorrow. You haven't dressed her for a long time. I was perplexed about my wife's decision. She's my mascot. I always wore it before competitions, Ada retorted. In her youth, my wife was engaged in gymnastics and now the cups she won are at home. Her figure is still such that, yes, put on your talisman, am I against it? I reassured my wife. The next morning at 10 o'clock, we approached the building of the business center, where our notary's office was located. We have an appointment for 10 to 20. Sergey's brother was already here. We greeted each other, exchanged a couple of phrases on duty, and were silent. I read the sign on the door we need. Notary Public Novakovsky VA reception hours, lunch break, everything as usual. Reading the notary's name, I smiled and noted to myself how many namesakes there are in the world. The door opened. A young lady fluttered out. I'm an assistant notary, she introduced herself. Please come in. They entered. I looked around. The office is like an office. Nothing special. 2 rooms. I'll be right there. A man's voice sounded from the open door of the adjoining room. And indeed, the owner of this voice appeared before us very soon. I am the notary public Novakovsky Vladislav Alexandrovich. I will arrange your purchase and sale of an apartment building. He rattled off the phrases on duty. Not a namesake, I thought, and for some reason my mood deteriorated sharply. This Vladik again, or rather Vladislav Alexandrovich already. Poring over a folder of documents, he read in a low voice. The seller is Sergei Shevchuk. The interests of the seller are represented by Nikolai Shevchuk. There is a power of attorney. The buyer is Adeline Lang. We decided to register the house for my wife. And here, for the first time, he did not run over our faces, he looked at us intently. Naturally, my face seemed familiar to him. Lang, he said thoughtfully, and his face cleared. Andrei Ivanovich? Am I right? No, you're not mistaken, I replied, trying to be calm. What do you do? Vladik asked almost affectionately. Affectionate as a boa constrictor, I thought at that moment. You know each other, his wife chimed in. Are you probably a student of Andrei Ivanovich? Yes, I am his student, Vlad replied, carefully and appraisingly examining Adeline. And you, I suppose, are Andrei Ivanovich's wife? You're right. My wife beamed, smiling coquettishly. Did he tell you what kind of friends we are? Of course he did, of course. I understood that Vlad had a plan of revenge maturing in his head, and, apparently, the final touches remained. Vladislav Alexandrovich. The assistant's voice came from the next room. I'm coming now, the notary replied. Excuse me for a moment. You know, we're going to have to reschedule the deal. There were some complications, he said when he returned. Let's meet tomorrow at 14 to 30. Anxiety filled me to the brim, but I tried not to show it. Nikolai, representing Serega, immediately left without delving into anything. The assistant also went out somewhere. My wife and I were going out too. Vlad snapped the lock on the door and said with a smile, "And I will ask you, Andrei Ivanovich, to stay." Just like Sterlitz, I tried to laugh it off. "So you've looked at a house, you want to buy a nest for old age," Vlad said slowly. "And it may happen that you don't buy. It happens all the time. Why don't we buy it?" Ada asked anxiously. "Is there something wrong with the documents? Whether you buy or not depends on both of you. Do you know how your husband humiliated me? He hit me in front of my girlfriend. Humiliated me. The girl thought I was a weakling and left me. And I loved her. And you want revenge? It's so ignoble," my idealistic wife stammered. "Yes, I can and want to break your deal." "How?" "But the money for the house has already been paid. 30,000. Well then, there's nothing you can do. It happens that way. You don't have to divorce us. Everything is in order with the documents." "On what basis?" I exploded. "I have just been informed that this property has been seized. The former owner had very large debts in two of our banks. They did their best with the arrest. But it's all bullshit. What you're saying is bullshit. None of this is real. 2 calls, and it will all be real. It depends on you. I've already told you." "Good. What do you want? How exactly do you want to get back at me?" "Exquisitely, artistically, Andrei Ivanovich. I want to satisfy your wife. But after all, it doesn't matter that she's much older," he interrupted me. "The fact itself is important." We both looked at Ada. She sat with her mouth open, not wanting to believe what she had heard. "And that's not all," Vlad continued. "My second condition is that your husband must observe everything personally. He should enjoy it to the fullest." The wife was speechless. "Think about it. After all, 30,000. The apartment will be taken away to repay the loan. And where to live?" "Andrew," his wife murmured softly. "Shut up. Shut up." I realized that Ada was hesitating. "That's not enough yet. I have my wife with me." Anger darkened my eyes. He came to his senses already in the arms of his wife. "Andrei, we have no other way out," the beloved woman whispered to me. "We have to agree." I stubbornly remained silent, not wanting to utter words of agreement. Seeing that I was hooked, my wife took the initiative into her own hands. "Good. We agree. But we need guarantees." "Well, what guarantees?" "I just want to get back at it." He nodded at me. "Just stupid revenge. Nothing else. You understand." "Yes, we understand," Adeline replied quietly. "And where it should be?" "Well, where do you want me?" My wife couldn't find the words. "Right here and right now. And besides, you should not behave like an object of violence. We have everything by love and consent." "For love," his wife snorted. "Well, then go ahead. I'm ready," said our blackmailer. Vladik quickly reciprocated with my wife. Quickly, to my surprise, he dealt with the insidious fastenings of the bra and dropped the dress on the floor. His wife leaned forward slightly, resting her hands on the countertop. At that moment, she turned her head to me and our eyes met. It seemed to me, or maybe it really was, that my wife was smiling at me, just a little bit, mysteriously, I would say. At that moment, Vlad was taking off her last thing black lace panties. He took it off and immediately inserted it into her. My wife continued to look at me. I still do not know what she was thinking at that moment, but her face was literally soulful. That's probably the way to paint portraits of women. Or maybe that's how they were written. Who knows? We completed our deal the next day without any problems. Now we live in our house on Zelenaya Street. We don't remember what happened yet. It's kind of awkward. It's awkward so far. I didn't see Vladik anymore. At least, I definitely haven't seen you.